Welcome all to K-Drama School. I'm your host, Grace Jung, and class is now in session. Been a minute again, folks. Thank you for tuning in. I did not have internet for the last week or so, maybe 2 weeks. For many of us, the internet is a life source, right? It's how we pay the bills. A lot of us rely on the internet in order to work, and then that ends up paying the bills. We also rely on the internet for basic things like entertainment, recreation. We also rely on the internet for slowly killing ourselves. I sometimes wake up in the morning and I'll still be in bed because I don't want to leave my warm and cuddly bed. And I'm like, I'm awake, but like I am just tired enough to want to stay in bed. And then I'll just scroll on my phone for hours looking at nothing important. Yeah, so it's both a life source and a source of destruction because it does waste my time. And I am fully addicted to it. I am fully addicted to. People call it doom scrolling. I don't really doom scroll. Like, I'm not scrolling with a sense of like anxiety, searching for answers in life. Or maybe I am. I usually scroll to find interesting or weird or funny videos of like animals doing cute and funny things, like where they mirror human beings, or like a cat that barks because the cat was raised by a house full of dogs, or seeing like a wolf and a bear become friends, or like badgers and coyotes developing a symbiotic relationship and becoming friends. Like, I look for weird videos like that. And then the other videos, or not even videos, I look for like photo slides, like a series of photos where you just like swipe left and then you just see another photo with like a different message. And usually those that I look for are like words of encouragement or positivity, things like it's not a rejection, it's a redirection, or like you choose your own path, like life is not happening to you, you chose this life. Like, just words that are like, I guess I'm looking for some kind of bigger truth beyond what I am seeing all the time, because right now I am currently seeing a lot of death or illness or destruction, or let's not even call it that, let's just call it changes, drastic changes. And whenever there are changes of any kind, people like get freaked out a little bit because, you got to ride the waves, you got to ride the choppy waters, ride the turmoil. So I'm kind of in that place where like a friend of mine, a dear friend of mine, actually, I'm confidently going to say she's probably the closest friend that I have in Madison at the moment. She recently got diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer. And I am going to put the GoFundMe link on this episode. So if you're listening and you are in a position where you have, surplus income, where you have disposable income, and you would rather spend that disposable income on something other than another knickknack for your home or another item on Amazon that you could really reconsider, like, do you really need it? Because she is now a cancer patient. Like, she is going to go through chemotherapy. She is only 36 years old, and she is flushing her savings down the toilet in order to live. So if you can donate just a couple bucks on the GoFundMe page, that would be super helpful, and I would be super grateful to you, because she's one of these people who are just, how do I put it? My partner actually put it in the best way. He said, Sarah's very inclusive. And I was like, that is probably the best way to describe her. Sarah is very inclusive. And when I first moved to Madison, like I didn't know anybody, but I just wanted somebody who's like a friend, like somebody who's like a hang or somebody I can call when I need to, like, have an emergency contact. And Sarah became that person, like very willingly and naturally, like we barely knew each other. Like we had met just 2 months and she was willing to be my point of contact, to drive me to get this very minor surgery done. And she was there for me for the whole day. Like, you don't get friends like that all the time. So me and my Clown Jam team, which is called Peanut Butter Clown Jam. So we made these, what do you call, this is supposed to be a sash, but I'm going to wear it as a tube top. So these are the peanuts that are shaped like butter. And then this is the jam. Yeah, I drew this. So Peanut Butter Clown Jam, that's our Madison Clown Workshop group. And I guess we now have an Instagram. It's just Peanut Butter Clown Jam. You'll find it on Instagram. If you ever want to join our workshop, it's the first Sunday of every month and it's something we do. And I'm not going to lie. Whenever I go to one of these Sunday meetings, there's so much dread. Like, I'm just like, I don't want to go. There's just so much resistance. I'm just like, God damn it, I don't want to fucking go. And then I go, and then I'm like, I'm glad I came. Yeah, I'm glad I came. I'm glad I'm like, hanging out with people and being a little social. But I also notice, like, after I'm done with the workshop, like, my social battery is like super low. Like, I don't want to talk to anybody. I just want to have a meal and like sit down. So yeah, we're figuring shit out. Okay. We're still figuring shit out. But like, we've been doing it for almost a year. I think the first one we did was last year in like October or November. But it's like almost been a year of this. And I couldn't be more proud of us. Like, a year of this is only, 12 weeks of it? But still, nonetheless, like, we met 12 times and did clown stuff together 12 times. That's something. That's still like a community of some sorts. So, Peanut Butter Clown Jam, if you want to support us, follow us on Peanut Butter Clown Jam. You can see weird content of us, like weird videos and like photos. Like, we're creeps. We're weird. We will make you uncomfortable. We will push your boundaries. And we will ensure that you get to know yourself a little bit better by the end. Yeah. Because, a lot of the times people like have these judgments. They're like, I didn't like that movie because it made me feel a certain way. Or I didn't like talking to that person because he made me feel a certain way. It's like, you're just learning a little bit more about yourself right now. How do you handle yourself in discomfort? Why is this a point of discomfort? Yeah, maybe figure that shit out. Why did this bother you? Yeah. Like, one big thing that I learned in clowning that helped me a lot was walking around the room, just making eye contact with people silently. You don't say anything. You just look at each person that you see. You make eye contact with them and you move on. And you keep walking in circles, like in the room, just experiencing your space, getting acquainted with your space. And while doing that, I will notice, like, oh, they didn't hold their gaze with me, or they didn't even look at me even though I was looking at them, or like that sense of rejection that comes up. And then it's just like, what do you do with it? And then the instructor's advice is deal with it. Can you deal with it? Can you deal with the fact that you're uncomfortable knowing that somebody you barely know doesn't have a job? Can you deal with the fact that somebody you barely know is relying on government benefits and you're not? And that makes you uncomfortable to the point where you got to grill them and ask them more questions. Like, can you deal with it? Can I deal with the fact that I feel invaded upon anytime somebody I hardly know or somebody I do know asks me these kinds of questions, when my answer is just as much as what their answer is, which is I don't know? Can we deal with the uncertainty of it all? Can we deal with the fact that my friend has breast cancer and there is a medical team, but we don't know whether or not she will live? Can we deal with not knowing? Can we deal with not having answers all the time? Can we deal with the dance of uncertainty? The show I'm discussing today is called Our Unwritten Soul. And this is a 12-episode series found on Netflix starring a tremendous actress, Park Bo-young. She was that strong girl Bong-soon chick that everybody loves. She was also on Oh My Ghostess. And I want to talk about this show very specifically to discuss the three actresses who appear on this series. Let's first start with Park Bo-young. But the three actresses are Park Bo-young, Kim Sun-young, and Chang Young-nam. And what they bring to this show, the life that they breathe into this show. So Park Bo-young, she made it big in the film Scandal Makers back in 2008, which co-starred Cha Tae-yeon, who is a beloved performer, comedic performer and actor in South Korea. And it was a domestic box office record-breaking hit at the time. And Park Bo-young was very new to the scene. She was just making a splash like with this film thing, and she was playing like a young single mom who was a teenage mom, and finding her father who had given birth, who had a child when he was very young and didn't know about it. So she made a huge success back in 2008 with this film, and then she did like a couple of smaller things here and there. But then in 2008, she went through like this huge dispute with her agency, which happens with young, vulnerable women who are up and coming and talented stars. Of course, the system wants to exploit them. The patriarchy will exploit and abuse them. And she was just like, I don't want to have this. So she had to quote unquote rest for a few years. And then she made it back onto television through a variety show, and then to the big screen with two horror movies. The first was Don't Click, and the other one was A Werewolf Boy. And it was interesting, like, watching her suddenly make this transition to horror. I feel like a lot of actors and actresses do this after they deal with some kind of scandal of some sorts. Like, Song Hye-kyo definitely did this. She got a divorce after, like, a big deal wedding, and then she comes back on a Netflix show with, like, scars and, like, a lot of cursing and smoking and just, like, grit and terror and horror. And yeah, it's just like I feel like it's just like part of the ritual. It's like, oh, she went away for a few years because she had to deal with some bullshit, and now she's back and she's got to show her teeth. Yeah, so that's what she did, and that's what Park Bo-young did. And then in 2015 she appeared in Oh My Ghost, or Oh My Ghostess, in a dual role, right, playing kind of like different personalities. And then made an even bigger splash in 2016 with Strong Girl Bong-soon, which made her a household television star name. What impresses me so much about Park Bo-young is how young she was when she first started out in the industry, and then she had to deal with this setback and then immediately come back after dealing with the bullshit and the shenanigans. And then you can see how she brings a lot of that experience into her performance in this show, Our Unwritten Soul. Because she's playing two roles again. It's similar to Oh My Ghostess. She's playing twins in this case, and the twins are very, very different. They're identical twins, but very different personalities. So on the one hand, she has like this so-called stable job, but she is like suicidal and depressed and feeling very stuck while she's dealing with like bullying and hazing culture at her white-collar office space. Nothing new. And then her twin sister is playing the more like bright, social, outgoing person, but did not go to college. And she's perfectly content working gig jobs, part-time gig jobs that don't offer any stability or income or pension. And she is just fine with that, and she wants to live her life like YOLO. So the critique there is like people in her vicinity, her mother especially, is just like, this is an irresponsible way to live. And she has to admit that she has not been living up to her fullest potential. I think anybody can criticize themselves by saying that they're not living up to their fullest potential. But in my case, when I was watching her, I was just like, I think she's fine. Like, she doesn't feel drawn to anything or called to anything, and she just wants to live her life working these kinds of jobs. And many people do work those kinds of jobs, a lot of them not by choice. And what's wrong with that? Is there something wrong with them, or is there something wrong with how things are? Like, because those people should have pensions and stability. I mean, I don't know. Or maybe there is no should. Whatever. Maybe I need to get rid of my models. In any case, like, I didn't have any issues with the way she was living her life because, YOLO is my current status at the moment. So, we're dealing with these two kinds of characters, and then what can they do for each other? So, of course, they swap roles, and then they work out their personal kinks and bullshit, and they have the perfect mask to do that in. And this is about masking. The whole thing is about masking. You have people who are masking as able-bodied when they are actually differently abled. You have people who are masking as real like blood-related family when they are actually a blended family. You have people who are masking as tough and gritty when they're actually hurt and vulnerable. You have somebody who's masking as bold and confident when she has some insecurities. You have somebody who is masking as aloof when she is actually very passionate. So masking is a major theme on this show. Now, I want to discuss Kim Sun-young's performance in this show. I love Kim Sun-young. She is the one who played the single mom in the series, the Reply series, Reply 1988. And she is just like this force of nature, right? Like, she's just an amazing performer. She's in so many K-dramas, and on a lot of her roles, she plays that loud-mouthed ajumma, the one who is just like in your face all the time, like pushing you around. But in this case, she's playing a stepmom who is fighting the stigma of being part of a blended family. And she's always very careful, always like walking on eggshells. Like, her tone is very quiet. She's like always pulling back a little bit. There's a little hint of like, oh, like sing-songy, kind of like, oh, I don't want to push any buttons, like very careful. And I was just like kind of astounded by this quiet and careful, reserved form of performance coming from somebody like Kim Sun-young, who's more known for doing the exact opposite. And we see this dam of emotions that are backed up throughout the whole series, and we see it flooding out later on, and that moment is also amazing. But it doesn't get broken until much later, and I just loved her sense of control, her disciplined performance, and seeing Kim Sun-young doing something very new and different. So that was such a treat for me to see. Finally, I want to talk about the actress Jang Young-nam, who plays the twins' mother. And I love Jang Young-nam because I talked about her in like Flowers and Sand, because she plays the mom to like those wrestler boys, right? Like, she has so much chutzpah, and she has just so much energy and like just grit about her. But she's like this small, petite, skinny lady. But you see her teeth. Like, she's not like going to ever back down from a fight. She's going to win. What's interesting about this actress is she actually started out as a comedic sketch performer on SNL Korea. And then she did a more serious film role as the lead in a film called Ajumma back in 2013, where she is like going to get revenge for a man who sexually assaulted her very much underage daughter. So she's like really good at playing both like funny and comedic, and also like very like crude, realist, gritty, serious kind of rawness. She's good at all of those things. So in this one, you see her playing like somebody who's very loud and mean and extroverted, but at the same time, she's demonstrating a lot of vulnerability and hurt underneath that sort of crudity around her. Very rough around the edges, but like, she exhibits these like emotionally sort of dysfunctional or unavailable habits because she felt unloved by her mother. Yeah. And she also like shows moments of jealousy when her mother is being kind to her daughters. She's like, "You were never like this to me. Like, you never showed up like this for me. Why are you doing it to my kids? Like, stop pretending." Right. So the silent repressed mother who does that to exhibit maturity, like that's out the window. She's just like, no, that's not my model. She's like, my model is I was treated unfairly and I'm willing to treat my children just as unfairly and I'm justified in that. And I love that choice because it's very human. It's very relatable in a way that's like, oh, a lot of people would say that that's detestable and you shouldn't be that way. But she's just like, no, fuck that. This is how I feel. This is how I'm going to be. And I'm perfectly fine in being so. Very, very self righteous in a way. And um, the way that she demands love through that kind of exhibition is, I think, very powerful and honest in a way. And it shows her vulnerability. It shows her childlike quality, her child wounds in a way that's like very much visible. So I just loved the actresses on this series very, very much. Today, I speak to clown, teacher, and actor Dean Evans. They trained with some amazing clown masters like Marcel Marceau and Philippe Gaulier. And they also live and work in Los Angeles, where they also provide workshops. They also travel and tour and perform all over. So let's talk to our buddy Dean Evans. Where are you right now?
I'm in my apartment in Los Angeles,
Where in LA do you live?
Virgil Village. It's like
Oh,
kind of right between like Silver Lake and Los Feliz and East Hollywood, kind of.
mm-hmm. That's a fun area to live in.
Yeah, it's nice.
It's interesting because I think we first like officially met on the set of Joe Schmo Show, um, when you and Juzo were both dressed as monks in these brown robes with like a rope tied around your waist, and you guys had these like mallets or some kind of large object in your hands. Like, what were you guys carrying?
Um, well, our job was to carry things, so we had a few different things, but I still haven't watched that show, by the way. Have you? I haven't watched it yet. Anyways, uh,
I Well, I tried because it was technically my first TV credit, so I was trying to watch it, but nobody has cable, you
right.
know? Nobody
Nobody.
watches television, so there was no way for me to see it.
Yeah, they showed the first episode on TBS.com, and that
Mhm.
was it. But then, yeah, you're right. I even posted on Instagram. And I was like, "Does anybody have a cable login?"
Yeah.
Some people are like, "I do," but they never gave it to me, and
Yeah.
I never
Yeah.
saw it. I
It
heard it
just
was pretty good. My mom watched it.
Oh, what did she say?
Um, what did she say? She rarely says whether she likes something or not, but I can usually tell. I think she enjoyed the show.
Oh, good.
She did enjoy it. She likes shows like that, like kind of reality like shows. So
Oh, okay. So, good. Well, we have one fan. It's your
yes,
mother. That's
I
nice.
I'm surprised that was your first gig. You seemed like a seasoned pro.
Nope. Nope. That was my first official television credit.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow,
I
cool.
did I did work on Comedy Bang Bang, but I was more like background and intern. Because what that show did was they would hire interns, unpaid, of course, and then use the interns as background actors so that they could save money.
Oh, gotcha.
And I was like, this is kind of a brilliant way to go about the system. But
That is, I know. Saturday Night Live does that too, because I've known people that were interns that they put them in the background. That makes sense
really,
though. You save a little money.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think you save a lot of money because background actors, they get paid pretty well, from what I understand.
Yeah, I
they're
know. Yeah, they're killing it.
they're literally like people in LA who just only do background gigs and they actually make a decent living.
Yeah, it was funny when I first moved here. I was like, maybe I'll do that. It kind of blows my mind, but it really gets down to this question of what do you want to do? Like some people just want to be on TV, and
Mhm.
there's nothing wrong with that.
Mhm.
I think everybody does kind of, but there are
Mhm.
some people that that is all they want.
Mhm.
They don't really want to make a name for themselves and or act or be involved with the project much more than just being on any old TV show.
Mhm.
But,
Mhm.
good for them.
Yeah.
I don't share that though, because I have done background before, and it's there are worse jobs, but
Yeah.
it's not the most fulfilling
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
me. I hope I'm
Yeah.
not offending any. Do you have a big background actor following?
Yeah, literally every single listener of mine is only a background actor, so this is probably messing up their day. Um, but I mean, the show was fun just in that, like, for we're talking about Joe Schmo, like the production was fun because everybody who worked on that basically has a clown background. And I think it was very unique in that regard. I mean, like, okay, you have comedy, like the broad umbrella of comedy, and then you have like improv. But then a lot of the people on that show very specifically have clown training. And that's kind of why I wanted to talk to you today, because I know you're trained in clowning, specifically miming. And so just wanted to like learn more about that. Like what drew you to clowning in, performance art specifically, and then more specific to miming. And what is miming? Like how do you define it and what's your relationship to it?
Good question. Well, yeah, so yeah, mime. I was introduced to mime in college, and that was really the first time I had been studying theater. I hadn't studied it prior. I just took a mime class on a whim. I kind of thought it would be like a silly joke, but the teacher, I really liked the physical part of it. I think which what drew me to it. I was taking a movement class at the time, and that even blew my mind at the time, having no theater background, that you could just take a movement class. It
Mm-hmm.
just I remember seeing it. It was like movement. I was like, what in the world? But so I took a mime class in college, and the teacher was a dancer, mime, theater director person. She referred me to this summer program called the School for Mime Theater, which is like a physical theater program. And
Mm-hmm.
then I did that. And then a part of that was clown. We took like a clown class. But it just so happened the first year we went, there was a clown troupe called Kaput Clown Theater, which was a Chicago-based troupe, and they were doing a show. And the one little clown class was so intriguing, and that show was so good, and there were some other performers there that were like clown identifying
Mm-hmm.
people, whatever you call it. And so I was just hooked right away. And then mime is a completely different art form. Mime is like the art of visual storytelling with your body, and
Mm-hmm.
it has a lot of different things that it pulls from, um, in terms of techniques, and it focuses a lot on writing and composition.
Mm-hmm.
But clown, clown really isn't anything. Clown is like just obviously this art form where you have a direct and immediate relationship with the audience while you're performing. So you're just looking at the audience, and then there are some other things that are byproducts and come along the way. But you can kind of do anything as a
Mm-hmm.
clown. You could be like a well, like in that show, Joe Schmo show, those are kind of like comedy clowns. They're clowns that are primarily involved with comedy, which is very much an LA
Mm-hmm.
thing. In other cities, clowns are like into theater,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes they're into like circus and variety. Um, but you kind of as a clown, you still usually have some kind of like home base or some type of training or modality or whatever you want to call it that you like, and then you're also a clown. So that kind of became what my mime was to me. Was it just gave me things to do. But mime is tricky because I'm primarily a clown and a performer, and it might not be too often that I actually am miming, so to speak, but it is one of those words that once someone finds out you're a mime, there's no going back.
Mhm.
You're a
Mhm.
mime to them, and for better or for worse. And that's okay. Although I have been miming a lot more in the recent years. For some reason, the
Mhm.
pandemic helped mime have a glow up, and now there's more mimes than there have been in the past, and it's weird. There's the
Mm.
LA Mime Festival, which is coming up
Mhm.
in like 3 weeks.
Mm.
Um, I teach mime online, which has a whole community around it. I just taught a week long immersion at the Celebration Barn in Maine,
Mhm.
and there's just more and more mimes every year.
Mhm. Yeah. So when you teach something like that online, I mean
Mhm.
that's interesting, right? Because you're teaching mime online, so through the screen. Like what kind of like what's like the first exercise that you get people into, or how do you get people to like break out of, you know, shielding themselves or overthinking things and right? Like
Yeah, I mean, over online, it's tricky, but really online is like it serves more as like a way to practice or an introduction to the art form. One way or another, it is a performing art, so online has its limitations. I think because
yeah.
it is a visual art form, it
Mhm.
works a little better online than like an online clown class, which I have
Yeah.
taught also,
Mm.
which seems sort of antithetical, and it is. It has serious limitations, but you can kind of wet people's whistle with online
Mhm.
classes. But with mime, you can get a little more nitty gritty because it is taught with technique. You can watch someone and give feedback on technique more so than other things. So
Mm.
the first thing we do, just like in a real in person mime classes, I just get them to stand up and walk around the room.
Mm.
And there's a big sort of component of mime that's very much about like, or at least a consideration in mime of one's architecture.
Mm.
And so that's like the first conversation is walking around your space so they get comfortable moving, but also not to take the architecture for granted, which when someone's in their bedroom is big time. They kind of just instinctually, they're not really looking around or seeing things in the same way. They're kind of in your own space. So
Mhm.
get people to walk around and try to awaken their senses anew to the environment, and then start thinking about how to like kind of decorate their space with their body.
Mm.
I use the term like to decorate the space, whether it's just through movement or being little characters or standing in a part of your room you've never stood in. So that concept of sort of reawakening the architecture, or at least reconsidering it,
Yeah.
is like sort of how a good thing for mime. So that's kind of the first thing we do is, and then I say this thing online where I try to like get them to extend beyond the walls and the roof and the architecture, like think about their energy going further so that I'm not
Mm.
training them to be low energy mimes. But I don't
Mhm.
know if that works or not, but I do say that.
Yeah. No, actually, as you were saying this, something clicked and made a whole lot of sense because when we look at social media content, it's all mime these days, especially on like a platform like TikTok, where people will record themselves just gesturing and doing physical things while their voiceover narrates stuff over the video. And I'm seeing that more and more and more. And so, yeah, like it's actually all movement, it's all mime, but for
Yeah, like
social media.
vertical video is surprisingly good for, obviously, I think like TikTok dances, and but it's interesting because I'm a filmmaker or an armchair filmmaker.
Mhm.
But the vertical video for a mime or a dancer or a physical artist is actually kind of a godsend because
Mhm.
for so long the challenge has been, well, I need to show my whole corporeal being, but on a widescreen you get 90% of the frame that you have to consider. but can upstage you, and it can be challenging to shoot. But with vertical video, it's the opposite.
Yeah.
So I honestly think it's partially because of that. It is nice to be able to just, oh, I can just show my whole body, and so yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, so you also say that you're a filmmaker. I mean, a lot of artists are everything, right? When you went to, because I looked in your bio, it said that you went to Ohio State University to study theater. Did you also study filmmaking there or media arts or anything like that?
No, just theater. Yeah, I hadn't studied theater before, and I was at the time in my early 20s, I was absolutely miserable, lost soul, had no direction in life. And someone who I worked with who was interesting, we were driving. I grew up in Columbus, which is kind of a college town for
Mm-hmm.
OSU, even though it's a city, it's a big college in a city. But we were driving by the campus, and my friend was like, I dare you to pull off the freeway and sign up for a theater. And I'd never seen a play before.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he was actually weirdly trying to help me.
Mm.
But I was like, okay. And we pulled off and went into the admissions office, and we were like, we'd like to sign up for theater. And we did. But I had gone to community college prior to that, and I had no concept of this, but the community college was associated with the university by way of like they shared records or something. Long story short, the admissions person was like, technically you can start classes next week because it happened to be the beginning of the year just by chance, and they were like, we already have your records, and so you
Hmm.
can start. And so I started taking like acting classes that next week, and I was horrified. I was so nervous and had
Mm-hmm.
stage fright, and I still do have stage fright, but I was so scared every single day. But for whatever was compelling me to pursue it, what
Yeah.
was. So I kept doing it. But that's how I started studying theater. It's so weird. It's such a weird thing that happened, and then everything changed. I was like, oh, I'll do this.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that is interesting, right? Like how people who do performing arts actually still continue to feel stage fright. And like, where is that coming from? Like, everybody feels it a little bit. Even people who are very comfortable on the stage, like, they still become self aware. And that's
Hmm.
sort of like what you were kind of training your students to do by making them walk around their own bedroom with a little more awareness,
Of
right?
course,
Like,
of course.
so where do you think that comes from? And then when do you feel it kind of dissipate when you're performing and moving?
Good question. I mean, I think it's super primal. I think that what is it? There's like the definition of a psychologically unsafe space is like a space in which you are at the judgment of your peers and
Mm,
colleagues. So
mm-hmm,
I think we understand that to be in a position of potential ridicule as
mm,
social animals on some level comes across as life threatening to us, even if it's
mm-hmm,
abstract. There's some part of us that understands it as life threatening, or the potential for something like that.
mm,
Um, so that, I mean, yeah, I mean, a, when does it dissipate? I don't know that it does. I mean, it does change from initially when I first started experiencing it. It was overwhelming and probably not sustainable, but it does shift from like a sheer terror to just like a you still have the adrenaline and the
mm-hmm,
excitement, but it's not really coming across as fear. It's more like an excitement. Sometimes it still is scary depending, but I don't know that it goes away, but I will say and a big part of clown training, as you may know, is with you even in these situations that are not conducive to being comfortable and creative, you train to find a state of play and presence
mm-hmm,
in this state of whatever it is, fear, self-consciousness, whatever. And
mm-hmm,
so if I can go on stage and find play, which I usually can, I'm not thinking about it while I'm on stage, usually,
mm-hmm,
unless I'm completely bombing in silence, which does happen. Um, But generally speaking, if I'm out there and I'm having fun, I'm not really nervous. It kind of like inverses itself, and I'll get really courageous when I'm out there. Not the moment before. I'll be nervous, but as you know, you can't really. It might not be the best uh, to start the show off coming out looking terrified. So you kind of
Mhm.
have to find versions of yourself that want to put your head on the executioner's block and do
Yeah.
it, do it. Like
Yeah.
you have to kind of flip it.
Yeah. I like that. I like finding the versions of yourself who's like willing to do that because we all have, multiple eyes within, right? And it's like, I think that's sort of the fun part about clowning too. It's like, which eye is going to step up to the plate in this moment? And then waiting for that arrival is like that really fun uncertainty of clowning that I genuinely enjoy, as opposed to like stand up where I know who the I is, like
Hmm.
very specifically, and I know what she's going to be saying.
Hmm.
So, yeah, that aspect I really love. Um, I also kind of want to ask you more about um, clowning, but specifically the bouffant and like I mean what that is. I mean like cuz the bouffant has been like written about so much
Hmm.
cuz like when I do like media studies or clown theory studies, like and I read, I see bouffant come up like over and over and over again, and people have all these different thoughts and opinions and philosophies about it. But like, what is a bouffant to you? Like, what draws you to it? And like, what's your relationship to that kind of work?
Hmm. Yeah, Buffon to me, and I'm no Buffon purist, but I am a Buffon, is satirical clown that has a satirical element. Although it must be said that clowning, I think, does and is supposed to and should have a satirical element.
Mm,
If you look at, you know, clowning of indigenous cultures or ancient clowning, they're one and the same. Like clown is meant to solve these problems or shed light on social issues, and it just is supposed to have that. And I think like I don't know that I'd purely blame Lecoq because I don't know that I understand the full context. But it seems like around Lecoq European clowny, they wanted to separate clown and Buffon. And yes, like historically, academically, Buffon has this kind of, at least in the way it's taught, these like kind of European medieval roots. But
mm-hmm,
I think that even those are really just to help get you to this place of satire. I don't even
mm-hmm,
think they're that crucial or imperative to the art form for myself. So
mm-hmm,
at some point, clown got turned into like red nosed clowning or the clown with
mm,
the naivete and the innocence.
mm-hmm,
And Buffon is like the satirical clown. But really, clown has always had that element to it. So in my understanding of them, they intermix. And I think that the label of Buffon keeps at least like pings us to always consider like what our message is and what we're trying to change. Although
mm-hmm,
it doesn't always occur to me to even use the word bouffon, but it is
mm-hmm,
important. That's the thing about the labels. They're important, I think, initially when you're trying to understand a new realm of play and when you're seeking out your interests. It's important to understand Buffon and seek it out and be able to Google it and read about it.
mm-hmm,
But then once you start doing it, like I direct Buffon troops a lot too.
mm-hmm,
When we get into a question about what's Buffon, what's not Buffon, I usually just table it indefinitely because I'm like, we'll
mm-hmm,
let the critics decide what's Buffon, what's not at this point. Like once
mm-hmm.
you're doing it and you're learning it, it's best to whatever.
Yeah.
But the tradition of Buffon is where you distort your body into something that's grotesque. And
Mm-hmm,
there's reasons for that, but that sort of comes from the medieval kind of castle freak Buffon,
mm-hmm,
kind of you know, in the same, and jester is another word that comes up, although technically that has its own thing. But jester is a satirical, has
Mm-hmm.
a satire element to it. Um, but the Buffon tends to be a little more focused around mocking, and the hiding of the human form actually allows us to go a little bit further
Hmm.
with the mocking and the satire, whereas the jester, and speaking traditionally, has to be very crafty and cautious so they
Mm-hmm.
don't get executed.
Yeah.
But because they are slightly more human shaped, you don't quite get away with murder the way you do if you look like a complete sort of mutant.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it kind of gets mixed up, but I think like Buffon at its core is a form of kind of like clown satire.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I like what you say about like hiding the human form as almost a necessity for like protection even. I mean, or maybe even to seem like I, the Buffon, am not on the same even keel as you. Like, I'm
Mhm.
above you or I'm below you. Like, hierarchy almost comes into play. And because of that, it's like I get to criticize you or call you out or tease you or make fun of you, or now you're going to be my toy. I'm going to bat you around. Like, um, have you seen that movie, The Substance?
Oh, I haven't seen it yet. I was just thinking about it. I
Yeah.
felt like it was like really uh, popular in the theaters, but then it kind of like disappeared. But I
Yeah.
never saw it, but I want to because I'm into kind of like body horror and stuff. So
Yeah.
I just was thinking about it yesterday. I was like, oh, I have
Yeah,
to
I
see.
think you'd really love it because as soon as you said like kind of like removing like the Buffon removes the human form, I was like, oh, like there's this very critical scene like in the last act where she transforms completely and it's like what is this, and the whole film is of course about like post feminism and what that is and blah blah blah, so I think you'd appreciate that. But okay, the removing the human form thing is like definitely staying with me. I'm gonna think more on that, so I appreciate that.
Mhm.
um I also read that you worked with Marcel Marceau, is that true?
Yeah, uh-huh. Yeah, I kind of lucked out with that. It was the last time he was in the US. I think it was 2002.
Oh wow.
And he, because I had a teacher in college who was a mime,
Mm-hmm.
she helped facilitate him coming to the college. And so while he was there, he taught a master class that was an immersion, but they enticed him to go there because Ohio State, big university, has a lot of money, had at the time a very cutting edge motion capture uh, facility.
Hmm.
And so during the mornings, when his assistant Jean G was teaching us corporeal mime, which is a type of classical mime, he was in that studio, like wearing a suit, trying to sort of, he's a classic old French guy. He was very interested in his legacy.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those people are their legacy, and what do I leave? And then, he was old at that point,
Mm-hmm.
and so he was attempting to capture the data of all of his movements and his body of work. And then
Mm-hmm.
in the afternoons, he would teach us, and then the evenings we would like show pieces and stuff. So it was fortunate. I got to see him do his show a couple times. So I kind of lucked out, but also it was pretty early on in my mime training. So
Mm-hmm.
although I did study with him and it was formative, at the time I was brand spanking new. I probably get a lot more out of it now.
Mm-hmm.
But it was cool at the time to get to work with a old French master.
Yeah. Is there anything from his teaching that like stays with you or that you think
Yeah,
about?
oh yeah. So he was a very like uh master teacher, but also very straightforward. And so I performed a piece for him, and it was the first mime piece I ever wrote, and it was, I'm sure pretty bad. And it was in a giant theater with just him and the rest of the people in the workshop. So it's like a
Mhm.
750 seat theater with like 12 people sitting up
Mhm.
front in this huge stage, and I performed my piece. And he came on stage, and he's trying to suss me out if I'm interested. He was always into, if you're into mime, you've got to be willing to practice it 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for years and years, which is not really feasible these days.
Mhm.
But he just took me by the arm and he walked me around. He was like, the first thing you have to learn is how to walk in a circle, how to walk in a square. So his note was essentially the same thing that I talked about in a mime class. The first thing you consider is the architecture.
Mm.
His note was essentially, he didn't even really get into the piece. He was like, look how big this stage is. It's huge.
Mm.
And you stood in that one spot. And at the time I was really shy and probably hardly taking up any space at all. He
Mhm.
was like, you got to fill this whole space. So he's like, you got to walk in a square, and we walked around the whole stage. Now you walk in a circle, and he's like, that's what it feels like to fill the whole space. It was interesting. I got a lot out of it. It's a huge lesson,
Yeah.
but it was funny. There was an article that the Columbus Dispatch, the local paper, wrote later on that I didn't read for many years. It happened. I was looking for a review for an old show. So it's like trapped in the world of like Googling my name and
Mhm.
Columbus Dispatch. And this article came up about when Marcel Marceau was at the college, and it was interviewing my teacher. Her name was Janine Thompson. And she was saying she was driving Marcel Marceau back to his hotel room, and he was giggling. And she was like, "What are you giggling about?" And he was like, "Oh, that mime that did the piece that came up. It was so silly. It was making him laugh." And I didn't read that for until like 20 years
Oh,
later. And I
wow.
was like, "Oh my God, that's so funny.
Yeah.
That's so funny that I made him giggle." And
Yeah.
I never knew.
Yeah. Yeah. That's actually amazing, right?
It is amazing. I copied that article. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I have to hold on to this article because I had no idea that that happened."
Yeah, I mean, what a win, truly. Cause like, to make a master clown teacher, a French one, laugh is, like,
I know. You
so
did.
difficult.
Yeah, it is. It is. And
Yeah.
his big note to me, which is similar, as Philippe Gallier, another master of a different
Mhm.
art form but same vibe.
Yeah.
Uh, Marceau was like, "You have a very funny face. People laugh at your face, yes?" And I was kind of, "Yeah, I guess they do." And then years later, I studied with Philippe Gallier, and he was like, "Your face is bizarre, and people laugh at your face, yes?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess they do. I don't. I guess so. If you say so." So the French masters are on the same page.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Um, yeah, it's funny you mentioned Gaulier, because like, Gaulier, like, I don't know, I feel like so many people work or have worked with Gaulier in Los Angeles, like
It is. He's the one that LA clowns are obsessed with. LA clowns are obsessed with Philippe Gallier, the
yeah.
Edinburgh French Fest,
Yeah.
pooping on stage, which they
Yep.
never do, but they always say they're going
Yep.
to.
Yep.
And,
Yep.
all the classics. Yeah.
Okay, when did you, train with Gaulier, and, like,
Yeah,
what did
that
you
was
learn from that?
yeah, that was I don't remember when that was. It was in Chicago, weirdly. Again, I lucked out.
Ooh.
Gaulier came to my hometown. He was there. He teaches a clown. He teaches like clown, Buffon, other things. He taught his clown class, and it was funny because it was an immersion, and he was there for a while. I think he might have been there for like 3 weeks. But on the first day, he's old, and especially now doesn't even really teach so much. But even then, he just had lived an interesting life, a lot of wine and smoking, I think, but was kind of like older. And we were like, why did you come to Chicago? Like, why did you
Mm.
come all the way here? And he goes, I came here to buy a hat. And we're like, okay. And then the first day he was here, he went to this hat store and he bought a hat. And then the rest of the time he wore it. He literally was obsessed with hats, and he
Mm.
wanted to get this like really nice leather Stetson hat.
Yeah.
So he just financed his trip by teaching a workshop, which I totally get now because I do
Yeah.
that too. I'll be like, I want to go here. I can't afford it. I guess I'll teach a workshop.
Yeah.
Um, so he did that, and it was fun. It wasn't the exact right thing for me at the time. I did learn a lot, but I learned a lot as a teacher just to watch that pedagogy in action.
Yeah.
But that particular pedagogy isn't always right for everyone. Um, it's very, it's basically like creating some trauma,
Yeah.
creating trauma and working around it. So if you are a person with trauma in certain areas, it might be overwhelming. Some people
Yeah.
take it and never clown again, which I'm
Mm.
not super into.
Right.
But it is, if you can do that type of training at the right time, it can be
Yeah.
revelational. And some people love it. They don't want to do any other kind of training, which I think is uh, interesting, but
Yeah.
personality type,
Sure.
just based on how severe that method is. But
Yeah.
so it was fun to do. I gained a lot as a teacher. As a student, I was very mediocre in the class, and I was in the class at the time. I'd been clowning for a long time and had a lot of my students were in the class too.
Mhm.
So it was very humbling to just sort of be very mediocre and have there were people. I had students in there who were absolutely crushing the game because
Yeah.
it is kind of one of those methods where the less you know, the better you're probably going to do.
Ah.
There were
Mhm.
people in there that didn't even know what clowning was, and they were just crushing it because they're like, I don't know. It's the style of like being an idiot.
Right.
And so if you actually are sort of naive to the situation, it definitely informs your choices in a way that
Yeah.
works.
Yeah. Yeah, because they don't have the rigidity in their minds where they could like think or premeditate and then go. I mean, they're free because
Yeah,
they're like
yeah,
little babies. And
they're like little babies.
yeah, yeah. And yeah, I have heard of like Golier and like you basically have to be a masochist to appreciate
Yeah,
like his method of um basically like, humiliating you and disgracing you in front
yeah.
of your
And oftentimes
peers.
based on your gender, race, archetype, whatever it is, which is tough. I mean, I've known people that have gone and they're like, fuck that fucker. He's the most sexist, racist person I've known. And I know people that have gone and like fallen in love with him and
Yeah.
been like, I'm not interested in clowning, but I'm in love with. There's something about and there's something about like having a clown daddy. It's definitely a kink thing, and
Mm,
I've that's just how he is in class. Because I
yeah.
remember when I took the workshop, I was taking it with my girlfriend at the time, who was not a clown and who was loving the workshop, but she was
Yeah.
fascinated. So after the workshop, she approached him and was like, "What do we do if we're all so bad at clowning and we're all so bad? Like, what do we do? Like, should do we keep going?" He was like, "You're not bad. You're amazing. You're all really funny and good." She was like, "But you just said we were all so awful." He was like, I don't feel that way. That's just how I teach the class. I think you're hilarious. And in real life, you're great. If he was like, if I genuinely thought you were all that bad, I would just stop teaching the class. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, it's kind of like Chad Damiani's like that on stage. He's a little more he's playfully antagonistic, and you
Yeah.
definitely get the sense of that. So the audience isn't worried that he's truly hateful towards the performers, but he
Yeah.
roasts you viciously the whole time. But outside, I mean, obviously Chad cares, and he's very
Yeah.
sweet outside of that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's the same with Gaulier, except he in the class. He's unrelenting. There's
Mhm.
no like nudge nudge wink wink. He is literally like you're the worst. You just have to deal with it.
And he delivers in such a convincing way. And it actually reminds me of something that like Hindu like a lot of Hindu gurus would do in India, or even like, I don't know, even like martyrs and saints like Christ, like they used to do this, or they used to say this, or like Zen Buddhist teachers would also do the same thing. They all say the same thing. They're like, if you express, like they were like, expressing anger or criticism is totally okay, but if you do it with a modicum of hatred in your heart, then it's not okay. Like, are you able to express anger or raise your voice or let out rage without feeling or identifying with that emotion of hatred or viciousness or anger or rage? Like, are you able to remove yourself from that emotion and still deliver it in order to um, get a point across or to get a student to do something or whatever? You know, they're like, that's the point of okayness. And it seems like Goliath has mastered that to an extent because he does love his students and appreciates them, but he will be vicious when you're in the work and in the mode, and he'll tear you up.
Yeah, no, I think it is true. It's true. It's you know, with that pedagogy, and also Dr. Brown or Phil Burgers teaches in that there is this thing where, you know, it's brutal, but at the same time they're not making it up to be funny. They're saying what they're seeing. So
Right.
they're kind of being honest,
Yeah.
and 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 they're being playful, which
Mhm.
helps it to land in a different way. It is, it's like there's this exercise. I don't know if it's clowning. It's like physical theater exercises where you do like emotional scales, and
Mhm.
you really work yourself up into this frenzy of these different emotions. And sometimes when you're doing like what would be considered like a negative emotion, like your anger,
Mhm.
fear, remorse, grief,
Mhm.
there's this idea. And obviously in a clown class you're working on connecting with the audience, inviting them into the experience, so you're making eye contact with them the whole time. So
Mhm.
if you're doing like a level 10 anger and you're making eye contact with the audience, and if they get the sense that you're angry at them, then
Mm.
they're not really capable of taking that in. It's like, well, I have to block this off just for
Mhm.
safety and for practicality.
Mhm.
But there is a thing in the note that I say is like, you still have to look at the audience, but you're not angry at them. You're just angry and you're inviting them into your anger. And ultimately, which is a very simplistic approach, but I think when you're giving like performers, a thing to do, it's just got to be real simple. And that one tends to work. But I think you're right. I think it's like, there's a deliciousness to all emotions, even the bad ones,
Mhm.
of the anger and the fear. And obviously, I think that's why they happen so much in stories. It's the catharsis, but also it's sort of a part of the beauty of life is the deliciousness. I always say in class, relating this back to French mime, it is said, I don't know if it's actually said, but in like a true French Burgundy, if you have a glass of a true French Burgundy, it should taste a little bit like shit. Not that it should taste like you're drinking poop, but like in order for it to achieve its full potential, it should have this almost imperceptible hint of shit. And for some reason, I relate that to that experience of expressing anger, fear, grief publicly, where I'm not trying to spin it so that it's positive, but I'm not trying to just wield it like a weapon in one direction. I'm just sort of living in it and inviting other people into it, and enjoying it in a different way that I enjoy laughter and love and all the ones that are fun.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I love that. That's really beautifully put, and I think it's like important for um any culture that comes up as the new generation. I think that's always important, right? Because it's like, oh, like, are the Gen Zs like really not comfortable with certain emotions or dealing with certain things? Or, like I sense it when I'm teaching undergraduates. Like they're so young and so fragile, and I'm just like, can they handle anything? But then I look back on me at that age and, like I'm sure the same question came up looking at me. It's just like when you're of a certain age, there's such a fragility and purity and vulnerability to you that it's like anything might inflict harm, and it will, and yet you will still be standing and life will continue. And um even experiencing that, you will learn to appreciate the shit. Like shit is an acquired taste. It sounds like, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um,
Yeah, I remember I used to teach at Columbia College in Chicago. So every semester I'd have like a new group of students, and it was a bit of a different animal. As you know, you teach as well. Like a lot of clown teachers, like the old gurus, will be like, I won't accept students under 25, which isn't necessarily always true, but they just sort of set this boundary so that if they get the sense that a student isn't ready or doesn't have the capacity to deal with that in a productive way, they can like have a boundary and say like you can't take this class. Eh, but obviously if you're teaching at a college, you have to take students that are
mhm.
under 25. That's a part of the job, so you do deal with that more. And there are some clown exercises that, and things have changed. The physical theater back in the day had a sort of brutality almost to all of the exercises, and they've those types of exercises have been changed, and we've become more trauma informed as we've taught them as we've gone on. But there was one where you have half the class up kind of shoulder to shoulder, and the other half is watching from across a long distance. And it's this simple exercise. Maybe you've done it where you just say if you tell the students that are standing, if the audience likes you, you take a step forward. If they don't
Mm,
like you, take a step back. And you're not trying to be funny or make choices. You're just being present.
mm,
And obviously it's it's just a game, it's just an exercise, but to a college kid, especially who's quite young and maybe
mhm,
vulnerable, to even say to them, if your peers
mm.
like you, step forward. But if they don't like you, and I mentioned that one exercise because sometimes it would really either maybe be taken too literally, or maybe I just was doing it in the wrong situation. There was one time where I had a student do that exercise. He stood against the back wall the whole time, completely freaking out. He never stepped forward. And then that was the
Wow.
last time I ever saw him. Dropped the class. He actually dropped the whole program. And I was like, wow, yeah, that one was probably my fault. I mean, obviously he wasn't prepared, and maybe I could have done a better job at whatever, but that is a mind fuck for someone that's
Yeah,
19 years old or 20 years old to be like, if all of
yeah,
these people who you desperately need them to like you, if
yeah,
you look at them, because the whole point of the exercise, which we talk about after, is that it's all in your head.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
completely all in your head. You'll never really know how anybody ever really feels about you.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that's sort of the point of the exercise. But too early, it could cause damage. So lost a
yeah.
clown on that day for sure.
Well, I'm sure they also learned something about themselves as well. I'm sure as time went on, like, you know.
Yeah, they were probably just like learned that they didn't want to do anything related to
Okay.
that.
So, all right. I'm gonna ask one more question, and then we're gonna play our little improv game, and then we'll wrap up. Who is Honey Buns?
Oh, Honey Buns is a character. Are you asking just nuts and bolts, or you want like the root of who is Honey Buns?
Just whatever you want to say about Honey Buns.
Okay, Honey Buns is actually again not a Buffon purist, and although I tend to say Honey Buns is a Buffon character, it was born out of Buffon, that style of work. Although there are many things about the character that might stray from the traditional Buffon, it's a Buffon character that I do. I do a show, Honey Buns. There's been many different versions of it, and I travel around and perform it. But at the core of the character, Honey Buns was a big epiphany for me because it was the first time I had distorted the shape of my body, which gave me a big experience artistically. Because I'm someone that I experience a lot of like uh, self consciousness, gender dysphoria, things around my body and being seen that I've always struggled with.
Hmm.
And then the first time I was in a situation where I got to hide my shape, it really made me feel very empowered and and
Mm.
sexy in like a gross way.
Mhm.
And so it was sort of my first character, my first show that had like commercial success. And I think it was driving me is like that feeling of freedom and inhibition. And so it's a
Mhm.
character, uh, it's a Buffon character, but it's also, I talk about sort of the roots of what Honey Buns is in the show. But just the other day, I was listening to um, Digital Underground, the sort of 80s, 90s rap group, Digital
Mm.
Underground. I used to listen to them when I was a kid, and there was a song called "The Humpty Dance," and the Humpty Dance was at the time I didn't know this. The one of the rappers in the group had an alter ego. Shock G was him, but he had a is that his name? Shock G. Anyways, he had an alter ego named Humpty Hump. I didn't know it was an alter ego at the time. I just thought it was another rapper in the group. He had an alter ego. He wore like a he wore a big nose on glasses, like Harpo Marx glasses with the eyebrows and the
Mhm.
mustache ripped off.
Mhm.
And he kind of dressed like crazy, like really extravagantly, like a pimp. And he had a song called the Humpty Dance, and he rapped in a different voice.
Mm.
And that song was a huge hit. In fact, it's their most popular song. But Tupac was also in the group for a while when he was young. He was a young
Wow.
up and coming rapper. But
Mhm.
anyways, that concept, I loved that song. And even though I knew that he had to be fake because he had the fake nose and he raps about how his nose is big a lot, but and in my kid brain, I just didn't care. I didn't care to know the reality. There was just something about when he's Humpty Hump, he's allowed to behave. He's allowed to be more perverse.
Mhm.
Um, he's allowed to be more flamboyant in his dress and attire. He gets permission to do all these things.
Yeah.
And the way that his voice is similar to how I do the Honey Buns voice. It's just a different affect, different thing you do with the voice.
Mhm.
And I was just listening the other day, and I'd always wanted to do something with that song in the show. But I was listening to it just a couple of days ago, and I was like, wow, so much of Honey Buns is from this formative experience of seeing an artist inhabit another, being that's a step away from reality, but it's a step I'm willing to I'm willing to go there and not question it and just take it for face value because it's speaking to me.
Mhm.
So, and in its essence, Honey Buns is Humpty Hump, and the names are weirdly somewhat similar. Although the name I would say came from one of my other favorite characters, Baby Cakes, which
Mm.
was a character that Todd Neely, oh Brad Neely, this comedian, writer, cartoonist,
Mhm.
does this character called Baby Cakes. Which he's just like this big dumb idiot, but he's sort of like accidentally poetic at times. And I thought, well, I can't use the name Baby Cakes, so I'll use Honey Buns. But
Mm.
that's who Honey Buns is.
I love that.
Yeah. There's the
Okay.
hat. There's Honey Bun's hat right there. You can see the bottom of it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I love it when clowns like figure out that like and then one like that character starts to resonate with audiences too cuz it's like honestly it's really about when do you feel the most comfortable and the most liked and loved and the most free like in front of people,
Hmm.
and it's like do whatever it takes to get there, and I feel like Honey Buns is allowing that for you in some way, and I think that's so precious and amazing. And okay, so I play this game with all like comedians, performers. I basically take a specific K drama. So today I'm going to be covering a show called Our Unwritten Soul, which is on Netflix. And I just take like a scene or scenario from that show, and I ask like, what would you do if you were this character in this situation?
Okay.
And you can channel whoever you want while answering this question. You could be yourself, you could be a character, you could do whatever. There are no limits to how you can play
Okay.
this game. All right. So, let's say you're a senior in high school, you're a young lady named Miji, and you're a star sprinter at a major track meet at your school. And if you win this race, you get a full scholarship to any college you want to go. Okay. But
Gotcha.
then in the middle of the race, you sprain your ankle, fall flat on your face, and now your whole track career is over. What do you do?
What do I do? Well, and this is I'm lying on the track right there. I'm lying on the track.
Yep.
I think I get up slowly. And I get up super slow, and I think I probably initially I'm looking down, but then I kind of look out into the crowd. I'm scanning the crowd. And what I'm looking for is like, let's see, you said I'm a girl. I'm probably super cute. I'm
Mm-hmm.
an athlete,
Mm-hmm.
high school senior. I'm looking for the person who I have some kind of budding romantic thing with.
Mm.
I make eye contact with them, and through eye contact alone, I sort of entice them into nothing fast here. So just walk out, help lift me up, and then walk out off of the track somewhere where not everybody goes, like not the normal way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we just walk off, and no one ever sees us ever again. I drop out immediately. I can't recover after that.
Okay. Wow. I love that. Okay. All right. So let's say you're the same young lady. You're Michi again, but now time has passed. Like 12 years have gone by. You are now 30 years old. All
Okay.
right. And you work as a janitor at a school in a small farm town where you grew up. Okay.
Okay.
You live with your mother. Your mother works in the kitchen of the same school that you clean, and you have a twin sister. Her name is Mire, and she works in the big city of Seoul at a major corporation. All right. One day, your mom tells you to deliver a bunch of home cooked meals to your sister Mire in Seoul. So you take the bus, you go to see your sister, and when she shows up, she looks disheveled, spaced out, and anytime she speaks, all she does is talk about suicide. Right. And then later that evening, you catch your sister, Mire, hanging out the balcony of her apartment building, ready to jump. What do you do?
I think I just I okay. I think I just go. Let's switch. Let's switch. We're twins, right? You said we're twins. We're switching. I wouldn't even make it a question. I'd be like,
Oh,
look, this isn't working. Let's switch. I'll be you. I'll go into
mm,
your life. You be me. My life is simple. I'm a
mm,
janitor. I work with mom, see
mm-hmm,
mom every day, back in the
mm-hmm,
hometown.
yeah,
It's better for your mental health.
mm-hmm,
And then I'll just figure this out.
yeah,
And then I get to live, as long as I can
yeah,
before I get caught. And that way, yeah, I just have to step into my sister's shoes and save her by switching. Would you
yeah.
think anyone would notice? I've never seen the show. Would anybody notice that when they tell us apart?
You know what's interesting is like you have not seen this show, but the first question, that scene where she scans and looks for her crush, like that happened in the show. And then also the twins switching places, that also happened in the show. So it's as if you've already seen the show, and it's very interesting how your answers are pretty much lining up with how the show unfolded in the story world. So okay, let's keep going. All right, all right. Let's say you're Miji again. Okay.
Okay.
You offer to switch places with your sister Mire. All right. So Mire goes home to live with your mom and work on a strawberry farm,
Nice.
and you take Mita's place at her apartment and start working at her office. And her office is full of bullies. Everybody like abuses Mita. They send her on shitty errands all the time. They don't tell her about meetings. They ostracize her, bully her, abuse her. All right. And when you show up at the office, you notice how people treat you with coldness and disregard. One day, your supervisors tell you to go visit an old woman named Rosa at a chicken stew restaurant, in an area that's being heavily gentrified. Your job is to convince Rosa to sell her restaurant to your company so that the gentrification project can be complete. Now, you know this is an impossible task that they have set up for you, and you have no experience doing anything like this. What do you do?
Well, gosh, I mean, it's impossible. Also, it sounds like the company of this business sucks and everybody's mean.
Yeah.
So I would probably just try to sabotage it. I
Oh,
would I would probably just tell the woman who runs the place, don't ever sell. Do the thing like where they build the freeway around the
uh huh.
house. It's
Uh
that
huh.
one person that holds out.
Yep.
I would probably just I would probably just sabotage that whole situation, like in terms of the company. Yeah, there's no way they're gonna. Plus, fuck gentrification, shop local. Um, so I don't know. I would probably just tell her to never, ever, ever sell
Okay.
ever, and just
Yeah.
ruin everything and probably maybe get fired. But that's, I think, gonna happen anyways eventually.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, okay. You're Michi again in this situation. All right. You go to Rosa's restaurant to speak with her about her business. But before you can even talk specifics, Rosa takes a handful of salt and throws it in your face and kicks you out. What do you do?
What do I do? I think I don't give up. I think I just go back, salt, eyes burning, and the first thing I say, I don't know if I knock, but if somehow the first thing I say is like, you don't have to sell. On your
Mm,
side.
mm-hmm.
I want to help you.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta,
Okay.
yeah, somehow maybe. I don't know if that would work, but it would be fun to try.
That is good. I like that. Okay. Let's say you're again the same character. You're Michi pretending to be Mire. All right. You bump into an old high school girlfriend, and she invites you to the local Seoul high school reunion at this bar. And everybody at the table is like praising you and how good you're doing. But then they start talking shit about your twin sister, Michi, who's actually you. And they're like bad mouthing her, how she never went to college or made anything of her life. What do you do?
Have I taken on any physical characteristics of my sister? Are there like a pair of glasses or a different hairstyle?
They're identical twins.
They're just absolutely identical.
Hmm.
Well, what I'm looking for is I think I would egg them on to for more information and to really get them to talk as much crap as possible. But what I'm looking for is some kind of reveal. Because
Hmm.
these are just my old high school
Hmm.
people. Who cares? I don't care. I'm willing to burn all these bridges right now. I don't care. So I'm looking for like a glasses off. Everybody realizes it's me the whole time. I would
Oh.
probably just do that. Give it all up right away. Never go to any class reunions ever again. I'd be like, oh really? That's what you think? And then I would say that, and they'd go, oh no, and I'd be like, that's right.
Okay. Yeah, I love that. All right, that's good. Okay, okay. All right, let's say you're Miji pretending to be Mire, your sister again, all right? You find out that the part of the reason why Mire's mental health was so poor is because a senior executive at the company who Mire had a really good rapport with one day got drunk and sexually assaulted her. But then after the assault, Mire insisted that they just move on from the event, not talk about it, not bring it up, just continue life as if it's normal. But then the executive went around the whole company telling everybody that Mire was hitting on him, even though he's a married man with a child. And that one day, the executive's wife showed up at their place of work, caused a scene in the lobby, and hit Mire across the face for being a slut. What do you do?
Well, there's not gonna be an easy thing to do right away, but I would definitely set up a sting. I'd be like, for the moment, I'd be like, fine, you slapped me, you got me. Sure, sure, I'm the slut, whatever. You'd have to just whatever. I would kind of want things to keep going. I wouldn't want to make a big scene right away because then I would set up a sting, I think.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
get like some video audio and try to bait this person into a situation where I could like capture their true self. I would have to, so there has to be some kind of revenge. You can't let that stuff slide, but
Mm.
it would take some time. I would play my long game and maybe spend a good year just
Wow.
trying to bait this person because that's just not gonna you're not gonna
Mm.
win the short game. It's got to be the long game.
Mhm.
I definitely set up a sting.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know if that's I now I got to see you
Okay.
said it's a show?
Yeah, it's this little Korean miniseries drama on Netflix. Okay. All right. Let's we'll do the last question that we can wrap up. All right. Let's say you're Miji again, pretending to be your twin sister Mire. Your high school crush, this dude named Hosu, finds out the truth. He knows that you're Miji, and you both confess your mutual feelings for each other. But then one day, Hosu discovers that he's losing hearing in both ears and might end up permanently deaf. And the shock of this newfound disability is so tremendous that he breaks up with you and he says it's because he does not want to be a burden in your life. What do you do?
Well, as a romantic, I would immediately start learning sign language. I would take like an immersion with sign language. I
Mm,
would return to him, find him, and I would profess my love in sign language
mm.
as a an act of devotion to try to convince him that we can make it work.
Oh,
It's gotta work. Who cares? He's deaf. No big deal.
yeah.
People are deaf all the time.
Right. All right. Lovely. Thanks for joining me on this podcast, Dean. It was such an
Yeah,
enriching conversation.
no problem. I wonder. My niece is into what's that show she's into? K-pop Demon Hunters.
Oh, the film. Yeah.
It's so popular.
It
It's
is like,
crazy.
it is insane. It's quite the phenomenon. Yeah. And I myself hadn't even seen it, but then my partner's entire extended family, like all these white chicks and white women, are like obsessed with the film and they can't stop talking about it. So I'm kind of like peer pressured into seeing it, even though it's not quite my cup of tea. And I started watching it. I didn't finish it yet, but like I see why it's so popular. Like it does hit all the points of like very beautiful, glossy images, shallow entertainment, good music, like
Mhm.
fun, complicated storytelling. Like it works. So
Nice.
yeah.